Dan Keam-George, you are the founder and director of Keam-George Agency, which is a highly successful event production agency. Thank you so much for joining me on Decoding Calm in 15 minutes.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
It's a
I'm
pleasure.
happy to be here and looking forward to our chat.
Likewise, yeah. So, first question I ask everybody, Dan, would you describe yourself as calm? You seem it.
Yeah, um, mostly I am, but I'm not bulletproof.
Yeah.
I think, and it's funny you've just said to me um, that I seem like I am, and there lies part of the my answer. I think when I was working for MTV back in the late 90s and the early noughties, which was one of my first experiences of sort of proper grown up life, where things came at you and there were responsibilities and things mattered, and you weren't just working in a restaurant or out partying or whatever you do in your late teens.
Mm.
When I was doing that, I gained a reputation for being very calm under pressure.
Did you?
So I think at that point, that I began to see myself as calm.
Right.
What people were telling me. That's not something I necessarily would have identified
Right.
myself. And you've just said it yourself just then. And in lots of ways, I think I am. But get me on a bad day, and I'm not. You know, I think. Well, I suppose not anyone's calm every day, are they?
What does stress you? What does a bad day for Dan look like? What kind of.
I don't deal particularly well with when I don't know what's coming down the tracks. Like, for example, if you just put that in the context of a project,
Mm.
I think that one of the stages of a project that I'm least keen on, which a lot of people love, is where there's creative flying backwards and forwards, and this hasn't been signed off, and then the client likes that idea but wants it to be built a bit into this direction, and the time's running down a bit, and or we haven't quite sussed out how we're going to do something, even though it was a great idea, and that sort of phase of uncertainty
Mm.
makes me less. I'm less at home with it. And then once you've got the sign off, they love the idea. They've got this budget. We've got this timeline. Then I feel much calmer because everything starts to feel clear. So I think that kind of clarity, and I also need to maintain a high level of organization. And
Yeah.
I usually have a plan, and so organization and planning and knowing what's happening. Those things keep me calm.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Okay. And so you are genuinely calm. You're not someone who appears calm on the outside, but underneath you're like that duck, the famous duck, paddling its little legs off.
No, I think I'm generally pretty calm. I'd say I'm probably calmer in work situations than I am sometimes with my kids. That's probably something you've heard several people say before.
Yeah.
But even with them, I mean, even my wife will tell me two different things. She'll tell me a different thing on a different day. She'll tell me I'm a calm person, and another day she'll tell me I'm a stress head or I'm OCD or I'm neurotic.
I
You know,
remember
take the calm. I'll take the, she was wrong on all the other days. So I'll take
exactly. Yeah. Take a first answer on that. Yeah.
definitely.
I remember hearing about a guy at really senior level, and they were working out his stress. And I know you're into your running and your measuring wearables and all things like that.
Mm.
So he had an HRV strap on. So people that don't know HRV stands for heart rate variability, and it's a pretty solid marker for kind of health and stress, isn't it? And I think HRV is probably best measured overnight and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And ironically, they found that with this guy, you're just touching on it there. They found that with this guy, he was less stressed at work than he was at home.
Interesting.
It was his home life that really stressed him out. Even though he was doing an incredibly stressful job,
Yeah.
he was sort of in quite in flow there, and he loved the pressure and he thrived on it, and that was really borne out in his
Right.
physiology. But when he went home, his stress levels went through the
Yeah.
roof for whatever reason. So it's interesting, isn't it? What
It
does
is, and
stress
I've heard
people?
that. I've heard similar stories about other people as well. And then you get people that are genuinely dealing with their work life very well. And it's not the kind of calm duck, but with the feet doing that. They're
Yeah,
genuinely are smashing it when it comes to their
yeah,
career. And then you hear, and I've had this friends of mine say this, and then you hear that, and they've got one kid, and they're finding it really, really hard to cope with this kid, not because it's necessarily a difficult child, but just because that's just for whatever reason, not their strength area, you know,
Yeah.
and that's their highest source of stress and anxiety is just even with one child sometimes.
Mm.
Genuine example without naming any names.
So did you know you were going to be a founder from a young age? Did you always want, because that comes with quite a lot of pressure, doesn't it? And I imagine the event production thing is pretty stressful. So did you always know you wanted to do that? Quite a high stressful job?
Um, no, I think that the high pressure job of being an event producer and then founding and sustaining an event production company, I think that kind of found me. I think for the reasons I think I've already outlined, really, I sort of discovered partly through, from outside feedback and partly from getting into the world of work that I dealt reasonably well with pressure. And if you've got an organized mind and you deal quite well with pressure, and you're kind of following your nose a bit, which I was, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do other than work in music loosely, which is how I found my way into MTV.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so, but yeah, calm under pressure, organized, good at dealing with multiple sort of moving parts. Lo and behold, I was in the events department, you know. So no, the answer to your question is I didn't always want high pressure jobs. In fact, if you asked me, do you want a high pressure job? If you asked me when I was 16, 18 or 36, I'd have said, no, I don't. But that's what I ended up doing. So
Right.
perhaps I see myself as less capable of dealing with pressure than I actually am.
Interesting, that, isn't it? So would describe it as a high pressure job, would you, if somebody asked you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what though? I think the job of being a producer, actually being the person or part of a key component of the team that's delivering a project and client facing, I think that is more stressful than running the business.
Right.
Even though the business is higher stakes for obvious reasons, that kind of fast flowing information, that moving parts, that demanding client, that challenging budget, all those things, those moving goalposts, that I think that's the more pressurizing situation than being the overseer, the founder.
Right. You can answer this however you want. What's the highest stakes situation you've ever been in, Dan? And critically, the answer we all want to hear. How do you get through it?
Hmm. Um, I've said this out loud on many an occasion. The trickiest, yeah, hardest, I'll call it, to use your more articulate term, highest stakes situation was, and this could actually be applied to professional and work world, that question, but the answer I have to that, it kind of covers both.
Right.
In about 2013, so yeah, 2013, 2014, yeah, 2013, definitely. About 10 years I'd been a freelance producer and a production manager by that point. This is all post MTV days. And I was facing up to the reality that the quite ample earnings for being an independent operator in the events industry was still not enough to sustain a London mortgage and a family of five. And we had a large and growing debt. You know, it was we needed to find a new mortgage on our house because we had some short-term 5-year guarantee. It was a guarantor mortgage, so we had to find a new mortgage on the home we were living in.
Right.
I was even told by my financial advisor that the only viable option was to move out of London, and it was pretty. It's not what you want to be told, is it? London's my hometown, you know, that's
Right.
my wife's hometown.
Okay.
It's where my children were born, you know. And so that year was 2013, which is how the reason I was able to identify that was because the following year I launched my events business at the same time as being a freelance event producer, because I thought I've got to try and monetize this event gig fast and better. And we won our first 2 clients with same year, following year. And very quickly, the financial situation turned around, and we kept our house, we kept our London life, and our children kept their school and they kept their friends. And all things could have easily gone the other way. And that's the massive sliding doors moment in hindsight.
Yeah.
No one realized at the time, and that was a pretty high stakes situation.
So do you think it was necessity being the mother of invention there, or do you think it was more than that?
100%. And I think that's
You just had to do it, right?
yeah.
You found a
I
way.
yes, I I'm not one of these enviable people that can profess to being passionate about what they do.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy and get a tremendous amount of deep satisfaction from having founded and from continuing to run a successful business. And I
Yeah.
genuinely become part of who I am, it's how I part of how I measure myself. But it's the process of having created something that's successful and that people need. You know, they want what you've got to offer, they want your services, and then seeing it come to fruition and seeing the end result and seeing happy clients and seeing a healthy bank balance, of course. Those are the things that give me the satisfaction more than the product itself, as in event production. So if that makes sense. So yeah, it's a necessity thing for me. You know,
Right.
if somebody handed me down 10 million quid tomorrow or more, I would certainly want to continue being busy, but I wouldn't necessarily continue producing events.
Right.
That may come across like I don't like what I do, which is totally not the case.
No, I
It's
understand.
certainly a necessity thing. It's provision for myself and my family.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say to your 21-year-old self, Dan, if you go back and speak to him?
Hmm.
Um, what would you advise him? I mean, first of all, I mean, the first question I think, if somebody asked me that question, the first answer would be, I wouldn't listen to him. I wouldn't listen to if the 51-year-old self could go back and talk to 21-year-old self, he would probably not listen. And if he did, he would then kind of shrug and go, what do you know?
Yeah.
But what would your top tips be if you went back and said to yourself as a 21-year-old man?
Yeah. I so wouldn't listen to my as my 21-year-old self. You're exactly right. I wouldn't listen. And I've looked back on letters that my I was living in Paris when I was 21.
Oh, were you?
And on letters that my mum and my dad individually had written me. That's how we communicated back then. Do you remember?
Oh,
We all kept in touch as friends with letters as well, and it was very interesting to get the box out and see how much we all loved each other. It was amazing. But anyway,
yeah.
I digress. And my mum's letters, reading them as a 50-year-old, which I did in lockdown, was so fascinating and moving because she was dishing out advice in a really gentle, really loving, caring way, and
Yeah.
I don't remember those letters, but reading them as a 50-year-old, it was like, wow, she was really looking out for me there. She was really trying to steer me and make sure I was all right and I made the right choices and didn't take too many wrong turns. Didn't listen to a word of it. Anyway,
No.
so if I was handing down advice on to myself, I think I'd say keep things in perspective because I think it's very easy when you're I think when you're at 16, 18, you don't give a shit. And later on in life, you're wise enough to have perspective. But I think personally speaking, anyway, there's a period in between, I think, which starts around about end of your teens into your 20s and goes on until you start to find your footing a bit more solidly. And that's to, I think, blow things out of proportion in terms of like it's something that might just only be a project based or something you've said or done wrong at work which you think has tarnished your reputation or and I think you can it's easy to blow things out of proportion and get very wound up about things that other people might only think for 2 minutes on because they're
Mm.
too worrying about themselves but you're just constantly thinking the whole world's looking at you and thinking about you and what you said last Tuesday when they've all forgotten it by the
Yeah.
minute. So I think keeping things in perspective in that regard, that identifying what's the worst thing that could happen, and once you've ID'd that and realised that that would be a manageable situation, it allows you to carry on calmly with the clarity that it takes to just move forward, and making the right decisions. And there's a tip, Steve, that I give to my son all the time. It's not a tip, it's more of a lecture, which is probably where I'm going wrong. He's 16 now, and I'm constantly telling him to make a plan. Like planning is everything. Once you've sussed out your plan, whether that's for a revision timetable, for a schedule of work, for an assignment, whether it's a training regimen for a sports event. Once you've got your plan, or to use that very governmenty term, a roadmap, you've got a path to how you're going to get to where you want to be, right?
Mm.
All looks and feels less overwhelming and more achievable. So I've been trying to get Arthur to make a plan for this, that, or the other. For
Do you think he's like you?
now, this is a great question, Steve, because I, 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 I'm still working it out, but I'm starting to wonder whether actually I'm perhaps trying to shoehorn my planning brain, my logistician brain, into the mind of
Yeah.
somebody who's maybe just not built like that.
Yeah.
I need
Well,
to
you talked about it earlier in the podcast, didn't you? You said the bit that doesn't stress you is when you've got the plan. When you got the plan, it's like, oh, okay, can
yeah,
breathe again. Got it. No, we're going.
yeah,
And I can relate to that, and probably most people can relate to that on one level or another.
hmm.
But I'm wondering if for your son, it's less critical to his anxiety levels having a plan than it would be to you.
Yeah. You could well be right, and I'm still kind of A/B testing that one.
Yeah.
Um, we are similar in lots of ways in terms of our kind of the way he's getting on at school and the things that his strengths or weaknesses at school. We're made quite similarly in that regard. With quite similar personality types. We're both introvert personality types. Although, yeah, I don't know, because it's quite a 16-year-old brain is very much developing still, and I see lots of his mum in him too, and she is definitely not a planner, trust me.
Right.
So I'll in fact I'll report back to you on that one in a few
Do
years' time.
do. Um, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to give you a quote from Oprah now.
Mm.
Because you and I, when we met, sounds very romantic. This we met pretty much on a rooftop bar, didn't we? Overlooking.
Just before we went abseiling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Um, and I know you're into your running. You've got your Virgin London Marathon
Yes.
top
Which
on there,
is,
and I know you do very good times. So
mm-hmm.
Oprah Winfrey said, "Running is the greatest metaphor for life
Mm.
because you get out of it what you put into it." So tell us exactly what running does for you, Dan. Why do you run? Why do you run? You run quite long distances, don't you? Marathon. That's a decent that's a decent length. It takes a lot of training, a lot of commitment.
Yeah.
Some people would think it'd be my worst nightmare. So what does running actually do for you?
It it's the most 100% helps me to stay calm.
Right.
It's the best mental health medicine there is, as far as I'm concerned. That's
Yeah.
I use that. That could come across as slightly flippant, actually, because I know that everyone has struggles that aren't people have struggles that aren't necessarily solvable by going for a run. So, just personally speaking, there though,
Yeah.
it to my point earlier about the work thing, it's become part of how I measure myself as well.
Mm.
I enjoy being half decent at something, and having some times or some medals and things to show for it. That gives me satisfaction. um I I love being outside. I've tried to pick up the habit of meditation several times, and it does work for me, and it has stuck for a while now and then. But the one thing that subjugates all that really is running. It's a cliche, but running is my meditation. And I know that most people who meditate would say, no, it's not your meditation, because meditation is this, that, and the other, and running's not, because it's that. And I get that, but
Oh, let's talk about that because that's an important point.
solitude, and it gives me, you can't help but breathe steadily because you have to.
Yeah.
And if you put yourself into the pain cave a bit, you have to be in the moment because you can't think about anything else.
Right.
And
Perfect.
there are lots of meditative things going on there.
Yeah.
Come out of a run feeling fantastic.
I mean, I would argue I'm not as good a runner for you, but I do enjoy it. I do park run most weekends.
Well,
And I
that's
would.
just hear that your part run time is 2 seconds faster than mine.
It was dog assisted though, wasn't it? Did I admit that?
It was what?
It was dog assisted.
Well, right. Okay. I would have to say that would be surely that would be trickier with a dog, wouldn't it?
No, she was dragging me.
She
Yeah. It
Okay.
felt, it almost felt like somebody was, and when I both sort of feet in the air when I was running, it felt like someone was giving me a gentle push from behind all the way around. And I was so focused on her and getting out of the way of everybody because I was worried that she was going to stop and do a poo halfway around or trip everybody up with a lead. So I thought I'll start right at the front, just try and get out of everybody's way. I ended up finishing sixth and doing the best time I've ever done.
I love it.
Um, but let me come back to that because you touched on a really important point there. Meditation, and I posted about it this week actually.
Mm.
Meditation versus something like running, and you hear people say, "Is running? Does it count? Is it meditation? You know, or I cycle, or I swim, or whatever I do."
Hmm.
And I would say it absolutely does count, and for the reasons you said there, it's when you're running. I think you mentioned the word pain cave, right? When you, if you did the Wim Hof, breathing or the ice baths, it's very hard to go in an ice bath and worry about your mortgage at the same time because it tends to vastly reduce the amount of thinking you're doing. And if you're running and pushing yourself to a good level like you are, again, the amount of thought that you're doing will probably reduce quite a lot. You'll tend to inhabit your body more. You'll pay more attention to your breathing,
Mm.
and so there's a lot of crossover between that and meditation. You could call it a meditation. The only thing I say to people is, if that's enough in your life, it's perfect. Um, for me, it wasn't quite enough because my mind, even though I go for a run or go work out, do whatever, I come back, my mind was still very active and it would wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So what we can do, the exciting thing is you can take the same beautiful components of a great run and reproduce them even when you're not running. You can calm and quiet your mind in the same way. And it's harder because running will kind of push you into it physically, so to speak.
Yeah.
It absolutely is possible. So for people that, in fact, my namesake is a great guy on LinkedIn. If you're not following him, follow him. A guy called Dan Ware, no relation.
Hmm.
He's into his running as well, and he's got a bad hip injury at the moment. It's kind of wiped him out a bit. And I was saying to him, there's what you get from your running, Dan. You can get it. You can still quiet your mind. You can still produce the same effect, so that when you do get injured, that's not your only lifeline. That's not your only kind of mental health thing. And oh God, if I break my ankle and I'm out for 3 months, I'm not mentally don't go AWOL. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of crossover, and I always encourage people to do as much exercise as they can.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no distinct barrier between exercising and meditation when it comes if you're exercising in the right way.
Yes, I fully agree with that. There is certainly not a distinct barrier between the two, and there are many things about running that are very similar and deliver the same results for the same physiological reasons as
Yeah,
meditation. But the two all obviously depart at some point as well.
yeah,
Yeah, but actually, you're thinking more about why I like to run, and I think it actually it teaches you lessons that you apply to life. It teaches you about going outside your comfort zone, which is we can't live outside our comfort zones all the time because that would be unhealthy both physically and mentally, right? But to step outside your comfort zone, let's say in a running regime, you 20% of your running you spend in discomfort or pain, and the other 80% you're in the comfort zone where you could run and you can have a conversation at the same time. But that
mm,
20% is where a lot of the magic happens, is where a lot of
mm,
the training benefits come.
yeah,
And that's cliche here, but in life, the painful bits, the harder bits, are where you learn the most, right?
no
And there are
doubt.
so many other um, lessons you can take from running, especially when you have time to think about them whilst you're doing it, that make you better at life in general. They're about there are lessons about consistency. Just keep showing up day after day, and
Mm,
even if it's not a non-linear journey,
yeah, yeah,
you eventually things fall into place for you. Keep
yeah,
moving forwards. Even if when you sometimes can't see the outcome, just keep moving forwards.
yeah,
Um, I think things take endurance and things take patience. I think magic doesn't happen overnight. All those things,
absolutely.
and almost any runner will say, "Run your own race. Comparison is pointless." Now, how perfect is that for life as well? There's a whole bunch. I could go on and rant on and make this a really boring podcast. But anyway, that thing of taking lessons learned in your hobby into the rest of your life is a big one for me as well.
Absolutely. And this is what keeps people thriving and allows them to sleep at night if they've got, we talk about it, you talk about slipping down the exhaustion funnel. One way to burn out relatively quickly is when you stop doing your running and you stop going and seeing your mates because you've got so much work to do and I can't go for a run tonight, I can't do this, and I can't, and you drop all the nourishing activities. These are the things that are keeping your head above water.
Yeah.
And if you pick them out and throw them all away and just work, you slide gently down this or quickly down this exhaustion funnel, and it's a one-way kind of thing. So these are critical things for our mental health.
That you just reminded me of another analogy, which is that taking a rest, that recovery is part of the process, right?
Yeah.
Rest isn't laziness. Rest is part of the getting stronger. A runner, a professional athlete will tell you that, and somebody who's learned to live their life well in general will tell you that. Again, more parallels there. Yeah,
absolutely. Quick fire questions. You ready?
Yes.
Morning or evening person?
Morning.
Yeah. Well, you said that with some authority there.
Yes, that's just
there was no doubt, was there?
That's it. It's like night and day. But morning all
keep
the
the
way.
puns, keep the puns coming.
Always want to start work earlier in the morning and be done by 4, but you can't shape. You can't shape everyone else to your ways, can you?
No.
Yeah.
Unless all your clients are in California or something, maybe that might work.
Yeah.
Would that work? Have I got my times wrong?
You'd end up working incredibly late, wouldn't you? Where would they have to be? They'd have to be somewhere. They'd all have to be in Russia, unfortunately.
I would have to go east. Okay, yeah. Emails or phone calls?
Emails.
Favorite food?
Indian.
Nice.
Mm.
What's your favorite curry then?
It's got to be it's the butter chicken. The old classic.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Favorite book?
With naan bread and onion bhajis and
of course. Favorite book?
Favorite book? I don't read as much as I used to, and probably not as much as I will in the future either. Going from vaguely recent reads, I'm going to say Educated by Tara Westover, who, and it's a true story too, which is one of the reasons I love it. But it's just phenomenal writing, and I recommend it to anyone. Phenomenal writing and a true story. I won't do any spoilers and things, but that's my answer. Educated by Tara Westover.
Thank you. Guilty pleasure, Dan?
Indian food.
2 for 1 on those, didn't we?
Yeah.
If you could invite anyone over, alive or dead, for dinner, who would it be? You can have more than one if you want.
That would be David Bowie, preferably alive.
Thank you, mate. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Most welcome, Steve. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Thanks very much.
All right. Speak to you soon.